break there, made myself a cup of coffee, and I'm back in the chair, ready to crack on and get this one finished. I've been having a look at it in the break, and I think it's doing okay. I think it's doing okay. These things always come together at the last minute. They go through stages where they look really rough, I must say. I mean, when I first started to put my art online in stages, I was rather concerned about it at first, because as a painting's coming along, it can look like nothing, an absolute mess, and then all of a sudden it's a painting. But people seem to like it. People seem to like watching it grow, so that's what gave me the idea for this. So here we go. Let's give it another go and see what happens. Where am I? Let's get used to this tech. There we go. This is where we're at the minute. I think we need to take off the rest of the masking on the body, on the torso, and that can be then cleaned up and finessed. And we'll do the rest of the body down here, just finishing it off, and then yep, and then the hair. So let's see, where are we? Let's get too dark. That's not good. Should have waited there, a little bit impatient in getting it done, and I ended up, that's better, ended up with a leak. No, not to worry, that's okay. We can sort that out. Okay, I think that's almost it for the body. Oops. Let's just soften that a little bit. That's it. A little bit of blue over here, that's not quite right there. That's it. And again. Right. Then we'll have a go at the hair and then maybe just a final titivation, as they say. So we want a base coat for the hair. Taking into account we've already taken out some highlights. I think we need some burnt umber. With a tinge of alizarin crimson. Without warming it too much. Let's take that down a touch with a little bit, maybe too much. Yeah, that's too much. Let's try that as a base. Is that going to look? That's going to look okay. A little bit lighter maybe. A bit more water in there. And we'll just give a base coat over the whole head. Okay. Just let that dry for a second. And then we'll add the darkest dark, which is going to be combination of ivory black, which is a browny black, Payne's grey, and just warmed up with a little burnt umber. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to just use my fingers here and blow up the back of the head. Sounds bad, doesn't it? But blow up the back of the head so I can see the detail in the hair, and work out where I'm going to put these darkest darks. This is the point where I end up being quite silent, because something very intense about getting the hair to look like hair without spending thousands of hours drawing individual strands. There we go. And for me, it's about getting in the darks, laying them in. I've already masked out the lights, and keeping that feel of flow, the way the hair is actually folding and flowing as it, that's it. As it sort of cascades down. I remember when I did this before, this sort of long session painting, I started it off exactly like I started off in the first session, talking 90% of the time, trying to explain everything that I was doing bit by bit. And by the end of the session, I was silent most of the time, because I'd forgotten that I actually do end up concentrating quite intently on what I'm doing. in the final stages especially, because that's when the tweaking happens and when the detail comes in, and when you have to start thinking, have I got it right? Is that bit right? Is that bit, do I need to change that? And it's a funny old thing as well, because there's this myth out there in the world of painting that watercolour is really difficult, because once you can put the paint on, you can't do anything about it, and it's an absolute myth. There are all sorts of things you can do to change it. You can take use the right paper and use the right paint combination, and you can take a lot of the paint off if you need to. Worst comes to the worst, shove it all under the tap. I've seen that done before now. I must admit, I've not really done that on myself. As far as I'm concerned, if it doesn't work, it doesn't work, and bin it and start again. But that's me. I don't know whether you've noticed as well, but this entire painting has been done with just 2 brushes. You know, there's a lot of myths again, a lot of, I nearly swore then. It's my channel, I suppose I could if I wanted to, but I don't really want to. But there's a lot of BS, let's say, talked about gear. And it's the same in everything, I know it's the same. I remember when I was a kid and I was madly into fishing, and I was always wanting the latest fishing gear and this reel and that rod, and it would be so much better if I had this and that and the other, and I'm also a musician, and the world of music is probably one of the worst worlds for gear craziness that there is. There's this whole thing, and a lot of it, I suppose, we fall foul of because of advertising, I suppose, because we're sold to constantly, aren't we? Pardon me. And we're constantly being sold to, and so we buy into it, I suppose. And there's always this thing of, when you get into something, I mean, now as well especially, there are so many YouTube channels with people saying, this gear is wonderful, this system is marvellous, you couldn't, I don't know how I've ever lived without it, and blah 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 blah, when actually what it comes down to is that the company are paying them or giving them something free to say how marvellous it is and all the rest of it. I think that'll do for the minute. Let that dry, and I'll take the what's it off, the masking off, and we'll finesse it then. But No, it is this thing of this. We've always got to have this or that or the other or whatever. Well, when I first started to paint, I did the same thing. I did. I've got a pot of brushes over here that I bought over 30 years ago, some of them. And they still work, they're still fine. Nothing wrong with them. But over the years, I've realised that it isn't the gear. Yeah, you don't want to try and paint with rubbish. You know, nobody wants to try and, don't want to be fighting your equipment. But it's amazing what you can get for hardly anything nowadays. This has been painted with 2 brushes. Let me hold them up to the camera so you can see them. There they are. Where are they from? Are they from posh art shop somewhere? Did I buy them on the internet? Are they Russian sable or whatever it is? Or well, no, they're both synthetic. They came in a pack. They came in a pack of brushes from the works. It probably cost £3 for the whole pack of a dozen brushes or something. And that's what I paint with. I used to buy expensive staples and things like that. It cost me £12–15 for a brush. I think I got out of that years ago. This brush cost pennies. This is a lovely brush. I've just painted the whole of this painting with this brush, more or less. I use this one to put on the big washes, and this one to do everything that you can see here. All this has been done with this synthetic brush. It forms a nice tip, which is really important. It holds a lot of paint, so I don't have to keep going backwards and forwards, backwards and forwards, backwards and forwards. And on the whole, it's great. You do not need the best and poshest equipment. You just don't. What you need is to develop your eye, is to develop your skills, is to develop your technique, to develop your way of putting the paint on, your way of mixing the paint, your way of thinking about the painting, your way of looking at the world. That's far more important than going out and buying expensive gear, expensive brushes. The only thing that I don't skip on, as I was saying in the very first video today, is the paper, because that makes a huge difference. It really does. Good quality paper makes painting so much easier. The paint does what you want it to on good quality paper. And I don't stint on the actual paints that I buy either, but that's for a very good reason. You can paint fantastic paintings with cheap paints. You can go to the works and you can buy yourself a pack of watercolours, and you can buy a nice pad of paper, some cheap brushes, and you can paint some fantastic paintings. The only trouble is I wouldn't trust any of them to last. They might, but then again they might not. I'm selling my work, I'm selling my paintings. My paintings become a product. They start off as a work of art, they become a product. And just as any product, they need to be fit for purpose, let's say. They need to be as good in 50 years' time as they are today. And I know with the paints that I use, with the paints that I'm used to using, that they last. I've got paintings on the wall in the house that I painted 30 years ago or more, and they are as fresh and as lovely today as they were the day I painted them. And I've no reason to believe that they won't be just as good in 100 years' time. Don't skimp on the paint. Don't skimp on the paper, and you will have a much more enjoyable painting experience. But believe me, you can paint wonderful pictures with cheap brushes. It's just the way of things. You know, I had a friend. Let's go back onto the other camera. Here I am. Oh, about 25 years ago or more, probably more actually, thinking about it. I'd gotten back into playing guitar. I'd had a gap of a few years where I'd been busy doing other things, and I decided to get back into playing guitar. And I didn't have much cash, didn't have much money, so I bought myself a cheap guitar. It was it was from Cash Converters, and it was everything a guitar shouldn't be. It was a Les Paul copy, a Hondo 2 Les Paul copy, and it was made out of, it was basically plywood body with a bolt-on neck and everything that it shouldn't be. But it was nice to play, to be honest. It played nice, and it sounded decent, and it sounded okay. And I eventually bought an OK amplifier to go with it, a nice sort of valve amp. And I used to go to these jam nights in the basement of a local pub. It was called if anybody remembers it, it was called the Bear. It was on the Brampton in Newcastle-under-Lyme. And it was a bit of a dive. But downstairs, it had a very smelly basement bar. And we used to take over this basement bar one night a week. And a load of musos would turn up, and we'd just plug in our instruments and we'd just jam. We wouldn't play anything in particular a lot of the time. We'd just jam. It was a real musician sort of night. It was great fun. I just loved it. Anyway, the crux of this story is that I would take this cheap guitar and my amplifier along, and I'd sit down and I'd plug it in and I'd play. And I was a bit rusty. I hadn't played for years, and I was still learning a lot of stuff. But I'd play it, it'd sound okay, I'd have a great night. But there was a guy named Dave, I can't remember his second name, who used to come to these jam nights. And he'd never bring anything with him. He'd never bring a guitar, or he'd never bring an amplifier or anything. But one night he came over to me and he said, "Do you mind if I have a go?" And I said, "Yeah, go on." And he put my cheap Hondo 2 Les Paul copy around his neck, and he started to play. It was like listening to Gary Moore. It was just absolutely phenomenal. This was my guitar and my amplifier, and it was absolutely, the notes were just pouring off his fingers, and it was him. It wasn't the guitar, it wasn't the amplifier, it was him. And he could have played that on stage at the O2, and he would have sounded marvellous, and everybody would have gone, "That's brilliant, that's brilliant," because it sounded absolutely wonderful, and it was nothing to do with the instrumentation. It was him. And a little add-on to that, one night we took the jam night. We had to move from premises to a different place for a jam night, and he decided to turn up, and he brought an amplifier and a guitar with him, and we played for sort of an hour or so, and then we decided to have a break, and he was playing great, as he always did. And I thought, well, I'm going to get me back here, I'm going to have a go in his gear. So I went over to him and I said, "Yeah, can I have a go?" He said, "Yeah." He said, "But it won't be in tune." I said, "What?" He said, "It won't be in tune. I never tune it. I just bend the notes until they sound right." I picked the guitar up, I put it around my neck, and I started to play. It was so out of tune, you would not believe it. But nobody had spotted that it was out of tune for the whole of the first session where Dave had just been playing the most gorgeous guitar. It wasn't the gear, it was him. And it's the same with painting. It's not how expensive your brushes are. It's what you do with them that matters. You know, don't. You know, if you buy a pack of 12 brushes and there's one good brush in there, you've still got a good brush for £3 or whatever that'll last you, well, however long. They do tend to last a long time actually, but however long it lasts you, you've got good value out of it, haven't you? Anyway, this is probably dry enough now to carry on. Let's go back to the other view. There we go. Let's now take off the masking tape. Now I know that looks messy and chunky. Always does it like when you take it off like that. But what it's done is it's preserved the white paper underneath it, so that we can now put some lighter colours in there. And we've got our highlights. So let's just take a bit of the base colour that we've been using and lighten it up a lot. Load of water. Make it nice and thin. And let's start. Don't worry if you lose bits. It doesn't matter. It just gives you that opportunity to finesse some highlights. You don't want a highlight that's much more than a hair's width, really, if you can get it. You're trying to get that feel with this fine brush of hair flow. That's it. I don't know whether that's the correct word, but it seems to be the best word that I can think of for it in many respects. I'm sure hairdressers have a correct word for it. And it always ends, we don't want any blobby rounded ends, because it always ends in a pointy bit, doesn't it, hair? So you want to make sure that you always end in a pointy bit, for want of a better phrase. It's strange sessions these, aren't they? Because it's like sometimes you're just watching me, and I am being like, as I said before, like a screensaver, more or less. Other times you're listening to the ramblings of an old man, so to speak. And then other times I'm sort of giving an art lesson. You know it for free. That's it. It comes down there. Try and get a hint here. She had really lovely braids in her hair. And we just get a feel of it on that side. We can't see the top braid really very much. But that's it. And now a deep shadow under there. And then set that dry for a second, because we've then got some shadows to put in. Some blue shadows to put in that where the hair makes soften that up there, because I've got to be careful here, because I mustn't forget that there was when I've done at this particular point here, there was a man here. Jamie was here digging a hole in the sand, and I removed him from the painting just to make a nice painting. No offence, Jamie, I love you very much, but you were in the way. Soften that up a bit. You don't want it to be that hard at the edges if you can help it, because that's it. And painting is a combination. You've got hard edges and soft edges, and what you don't want is a load of hard edges. It doesn't look real. Real life isn't that hard edged. If you look out at nature, nature doesn't have loads and loads of hard edges. Picture that. Just dampen it down. That's it. Nature has soft edges. Man-made things have hard edges. If you're painting something and it has a man-made stuff in the view, then that has hard edges. But if you are painting trees and painting fields and all those sort of things, the trees and the fields will not have hard edges. The fences will, because they're man-made. But nature doesn't make straight edges very much. Even if you look closely at a... There we go. Got shadow in there. If you look closely at what seems to be a straight edge in nature, it very rarely is. So, I think we're nearly done. We just, oops a daisy, just knocking everything flying again. Just get my painting picture back. And see. Now there's a dark area on the side of the hair here that is much darker than I've got it. Right, now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take off the masking tape, and let's just see. I've also got here a little blob where the little blob of paint has landed in on the sky and it's formed a dot. Now I want to try and just very gently ease it out. And if I can't ease it out all the way, I'll put a bird there, which I think I will do actually in a minute when it's dried, otherwise it won't be a bird, it'll be just a splodge. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to take off the masking tape and see how it looks. Now when you're removing the masking tape from this sort of thing, you've got to be careful because you can take a bit of the surface of the paper off. But if you see what I'm doing, I am pulling level with the surface of the paper, nice and steady, and I'm pulling away from the painting. So if by any chance, and it doesn't normally happen, especially with this paper's very good and the masking tape's nice and low tack, you get a nice straight edge. So let's take the other one off on the other side. Again, pulling down and away. Giving away all the trade secrets here, aren't I? If there was a magic circle for artists, I'd be in trouble. But there isn't. Now why do I do this? I do this just because it looks nice, to be honest. When I give the painting to the customer, it looks nice. It looks sharp and defined and as if there's some trouble gone into it, which there has. And if you just leave it and it's just splodgy edges, it doesn't look as nice. When it's framed, those nice sharp edges that I've got here, they'll disappear because you mount a watercolour right up to the paint. You don't leave white around it like you would do with a print. So it does disappear, but it just makes a nice difference. Now if I get the there we go. Just take off the pencil lines as best as we can, and there we have it. All that's left to be done is for me to sign it, which I will do this very second. I don't want your signature to be too dark. I just sign here. Sign in from the edge, otherwise when the framer frames it, then you lose a little bit there and you don't want it to be lost. So there we are. And the year is 2021. There we are, bird 21. And there, my friends, is today's finished I Paint Your Life painting. I hope you've enjoyed watching. It's gone quite well, really. I haven't had too many technical difficulties. Once I sorted out the overhead camera after that first session, I think it got a lot better. And I think that that's quite a nice one. Tomorrow's painting is going to be very, very different from this one. Very different from this one. So, you know, tune in tomorrow and see. You're going to see something very, very different to this. What's one of the nicest things about this project is the diversity of everything that that I get. I've just noticed something. I missed a bit of masking. Do you know, there it goes. It's so easy just to miss one little blob of masking. And you end up with it getting framed, and then you look and you go, oh my goodness, it's still got some masking in there. But there it is. That's it's actually better there without the masking. There you go. It's, yes, tomorrow, as I said, it's going to be very different. I'm going to be here at 10 o'clock tomorrow morning again. I would love you to just pop in now and again and see how I'm getting on. I would love you to go through your photographs and to send me pictures to paint. You know, the more diverse they can be, the more unusual they are, the more challenging they are, the more fun it is for me, the more enjoyable it is for me. This is what I do. I paint your life, and it's very satisfying. I have got these paintings on the walls of houses all over the world, and it's really very, very rewarding. In fact, I will do a little video to I think to show some of the little stories behind some of the paintings that I've done. If you're watching this and I've done a painting for you in the past, I would very much love it if you would show everybody again as I try and do this project to raise interest, just so that people can see what I've done in the past and see that people are very happy with the paintings, because I know you are. Anyway, let's just say bye-bye for today. I Paint Your Life. We'll be back again tomorrow. Till then, bye bye.